We have only one thing to talk about today, really, and that was that second Test match, the last match in the New Zealand tour of India, and it was very disappointing from a New Zealand perspective, obviously, for lots of reasons, the way in which they lost, and given how well they'd done in that first Test match, and we talked at length about how they had the opportunity to win it, to play like they did in Mumbai, Hess, you'd imagine that's a very, very disappointed Blackcaps camp.
Well, I think they would have got a lot of confidence from the way they fought hard in the first test. And then to turn up in Mumbai with that bit of extra bounce, and for Ajaz Patel to do what he did throughout the first sort of 4 or 5 sessions of that test match gave New Zealand a chance. And unfortunately, with the bat first innings, look, it was a poor performance. And it was a performance that showed a lack of match practice, a lack of planning in terms of your own individual game plan and how you're going to go about things. And then it basically just got on a bit of a roller coaster. And, you know, we've always talked about how difficult it is to start in India. And only 2 batsmen got double figures. So that certainly showed that not enough did. And once they got a start, no one was able to make a contribution. You get bowled out for in the 60s in the first innings of a test match. And therefore, you're always behind the 8 ball. And India in their second innings showed that it wasn't unplayable by any stretch. So the fact they were able to bat again and get close to 300 put New Zealand out of the game and showed that it was playable. And then obviously we were a long way behind and going to struggle to save that test match from there.
Smithy, our biggest ever loss, 372 runs we lost that match by. You've watched a lot of cricket in your time. In terms of a Blackcaps performance, where do you put that?
Hugely disappointing on the back of what one guy was able to do. I mean, you get one person in a test match contributing the way Ajaz Patel did with 14 wickets by himself. It was astonishingly how good he was, and astonishing how such a lack of support followed him behind it. I don't really understand a lot of what happened, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I know India are a very tough foe to combat. Sometimes their conditions are hard to adapt to in a short space of time. But I look at and listen to what Hess just said there, and he said the word lack of planning from a lot of people about that particular performance. You know, if you've got guys around the bat, how do you dislodge them? How do you make it uncomfortable for them to be there? How do you take LBWs and things out of play? They must have talked about that after the first Test match. But if they did, they certainly weren't able to implicate what and turn it into match practice on the field. So hugely disappointing. There should have been 10 guys lining up to apologise to Ajaz Patel at the end of that because he was so far the standout, it wasn't funny.
I want to talk about that lack of planning and preparation perhaps in just a minute, but I do think we need to talk about Ajaz Patel and just what he did. In that first innings, he bowled 47.5 overs, took 10 wickets for 119 runs. Then he bowled 26 overs in the second dig for 106. Now, he suffered from a calf niggle during the winter, and if it was... I mean, that is a young man who has worked incredibly hard to get to this point. He hadn't had a lot of cricket in winter. To come out and do that, obviously Mumbai is very special to him. That's where he was born, and he talked at length about that, arriving at Mumbai and feeling lots of emotions around it. For him to come out and play the way he did, with the lack of support, but to keep bowling, I mean, that's some serious numbers on the board. He must be unbelievably sore today, Mike.
Look, he will be, but he's built up for this over a number of years. I mean, for Central Districts, the Stags, he bowls a huge amount of overs, and he has for years. They just put him down at one end, just let him basically roll it over, go at 2 and over. The first innings, often he bowls over the wicket to try and control the run rate, and then when there's a little bit of turn later on, he comes back around to the right-handers. You know, he has grooved in his game over 4, 5, 6 seasons of first-class cricket, where he's been, the top wicket taker for at least 3 of those seasons. I don't know the exact numbers, but he's been hugely impressive. He's used to bowling a huge amount of overs. He would have benefited from Kanpur. I think we talked before the second test that neither of our spinners were great in Kanpur, and they were short of match practice. But they've got overs under their belt, and certainly AJ has benefited from that. And the fact he's bowled 73.5 overs, he will be sore, but he'll also have that little smile on his face to go, look, I've turned up to my hometown. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago during the T20 World Cup, and this was the match he was looking forward to. Obviously, his extended family's in Mumbai. He calls Mumbai a town, which is obviously couldn't be further from the truth. It's a massive place, but he wanted to go there. He wanted to perform. He knew there was bounce in the surface. He'd played there before, so he knew that was an opportunity for him to show his skills. And that was, I mean, that is just remarkable, absolutely remarkable, to get 10 wickets against a side packed full of players who know how to play spin. Remarkable achievement, one that should never, ever be taken away from him.
Absolutely not. Now, Smithy, you know a lot about players who take a lot of wickets at an innings. One that you played with got very close to what Ajaz was able to achieve. I did see a delightful interview post-match with both Ajaz Patel and Rachin Ravindra, who was under the ball coming up for that 10th wicket. And the commentator said to Rachin, so how were you feeling when you knew that Ajaz was on the cusp of something truly great and you had the potential to make that happen by taking the catch? And he said, mate, I was absolutely crapping my pants. And I applaud his honesty, because you'd have to think that you would be. What did you make of what Ajaz was able to achieve, Smithy?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he in lockdown before this? Wasn't he unable to join his Central District's teammates and get any real bowling in the middle under his belt? So that makes it even more remarkable that he was able to find that groove so quickly on in terms of getting it out in the middle. It's probably... I'm still, we're a couple of days down the track now. I'm struggling to think that it's not the best achievement in New Zealand cricket history by one individual. Sir Richard Hadlee was unbelievably good. He bowled like a machine that day, nigh on perfection. He took the 10th wicket by taking the catch, but he was a machine that day. But you can't take away. I mean, it's only been done 3 times now in the history of the game, and this game's got a deep and long history, and a lot of people have tried. A lot of people have got 6, 7, 8. 1 or 2 have got 9, but I can tell you right here and now, that is nigh on impossible to do. And he has done it, and he backed it up and said it wasn't a fluke by getting the first, 3 or 4 in the second innings as well. So he's an absolute, it was a standout. It was an incredibly good standout performance. It won't ever be taken away from him. No one will ever forget that. Just like we never forgot Hadlee's and never will. It was a real masterclass against the side playing on their home patch that should not be forgotten. He wasn't doing it at home. He was doing it away in the hardest possible conditions. So I really do applaud it. I think it's as good as anything I've ever seen.
And you could see how much the Indian team respected what he did as well. There were some truly lovely things that happened at the end of the match with a shirt with all 10 of the wickets that he got on it. It was really, truly special. Virat Kohli was back as the Indian captain. Great to see him, and they're really fizzing. It was good to see him with that fire in his belly. I do love watching Virat Kohli, really, when he gets a sniff of a win and his reactions and the way he behaves on the field. But let's talk about the other New Zealand bowlers and the performance on the performance on the park. Tim Southee was good, obviously, without taking any wickets. He was tidy. Kyle Jamieson just struggled a little early on there. And then you've obviously got Will Somerville. Do you think, with the lot of chat around the extra bounce in Mumbai, that they got it wrong by not having Neil Wagner in there?
Look, when you're not on the ground, you're making your opinion based on here. But I said before the second test, I would always pick Neil Wagner. I just think he can create things, regardless of whether there's a little bit of turn in the wicket. I mean, he can run and bowl cutters that are hard to play. He can bang it in halfway down. I just think he's too good a bowler for New Zealand to leave out, regardless of the conditions. And he's just one that he doesn't rely on swing. He doesn't rely on bounce. He relies on that hunger and that ability to get in under people's skin. So I would always pick him. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because he's just done a good job for so long. I mean, Kyle Jamieson's first over went for 12. Outside of that, he was actually relatively tidy. Didn't look particularly effective, which surprised me with the bounce. But he wasn't really able to be as consistent as he was in that first Test match. So he was a little bit disappointing in that respect. Look, Will Somerville, he's similar to what Smithy said in terms of Ajaz Patel. He just hasn't had the overs under his belt. He also was in lockdown, wasn't able to play any first-class cricket before going over there. There was no practice. You head straight into the first test where he was a little bit short of a gallop, unable to create any pressure from a run rate perspective, and India targeted him. India basically said, all the right-handers said, I'm not going to let you bowl. And they took him out of the game. And Tom Latham kept going back to him because he needed something more from him, but they just kept taking him out of the attack, going 4, 5, 6 and over. couldn't create any pressure. It's another reason why Ajaz Patel's record of performance was exceptional, because other than Tim Southee, there was no pressure built up at the other end. So, look, I think from a bowling point of view, outside of Ajaz, the obvious contender, Tim Southee was tidy, but outside of that, we're a little bit disappointing.
What do you think, Smithy? Do you think they got the selection wrong? Obviously, on the day of the game, they announced that Kane Williamson wasn't going to play with that elbow injury again, which is of instant concern, and I don't imagine we're going to see him much during this New Zealand summer. What did you make of their selection and how they went about that second test?
Yeah, I think they got themselves into a bit of a quandary, really. I think deep down they wanted to play Wagner. And I think if they were playing Wagner, then that was an excellent reason to play Somerville, because he was going to run down in those areas where right-handers don't like footmarks. And that would have created a little bit more assistance for Will Somerville. But it also would have created a hell of a lot of assistance for the Indian spinners as well. So I'm pretty sure they didn't want to make Ashwin's job any easier by building up any wear and tear on the surface. So I think that any day of the week, any captain would want Neil Wagner in the attack, because he knows he's a go-to guy that can either get him out of trouble or slow the pace of the opposition's advance in the game down, because that's what he's got. And he's also got a very clear strategy, which has worked pretty much everywhere in the world. And that's why it's one of the other staggering things that we never saw him. So I'd really like to know deep down, I don't know if we ever will, what the thinking was between Gary Stead, Kane Williamson and Tom Latham as to not in either of those test matches have Mr. Reliable in there.